I dropped plastic into the McDonald's deep fryer and didn't tell anyone. When I was 16, I got my first job at McDonald's as a kitchen worker. It was a ridiculously small kitchen space, with a garbage can parked right next to the deep fryer, which spelled disaster. On the day in question, I had a large mango smoothie, the cups that are made 100% out of plastic. When trying to throw the cup into the trash can, it went directly into the deep fryer for chicken. The cup literally disintegrated in the oil and turned it a darker color. But too afraid to get fired, as I was a new hire, I continued to make chicken burgers and nuggets throughout the night. I've heard countless stories of random objects being dropped by accident or purposely into the deep fryers. If your nuggets have a plastic taste or smell to them, this might be the explanation. When I was in grade school, I glued someone to their chair. When I was in 6th grade, I had to sit next to a kid that constantly stole my animal-shaped erasers. One day, we were doing a craft-type project, and the kid had taken the eraser off my desk while I went to get construction paper. And when I saw he had it, I told him he had my eraser, and he said it was his. I was pissed about it, but while I was up to get the glue from the glue box, I noticed a bottle of that super sticky, crazy glue that will literally make your fingers stick together. So I went back with the super glue with the intention of using it on my project and noticed that the kid was gone. So I used about half a bottle on his seat. He came back and sat down before it was done drying, as I'd hoped, and the next time he tried to get up, he realized he was stuck. The glue would rip his pants if he forced it, so the teacher had to make us all exit the classroom and pull this kid out of his pants because they were stuck to the chair. I never got caught or blamed for it as far as I know. I feel bad because it was probably embarrassing for him, and I don't know if his parents would be able to replace those pants that got glued to the chair. I was attracted to a woman until she took off her mask. I was stunned this morning when I stopped at my local Dunkin' Donuts and saw her. She didn't wear her medical mask today. Plenty of other people were, including myself, but a few had decided it was time to show their entire face. Their imperfect noses, their crooked teeth, the wrinkles in their smiles. She's in her 30s, speaks English adequately, and wears jeans almost every day. She also wears a bright blue stone on a gold chain around her neck, a stone I would look at almost daily as I handed her my cash and told her how many pumps of syrup I wanted. We've been flirting for almost a year. It's remarkable what you can see in a person when you only see their eyes. She would always make eye contact with me when I ordered, and when she gave me my change, she would sometimes caress my hand with hers, and it was electric. When I saw her without her mask, she looked different, like a woman I had never met. Her mouth has an underbite and her teeth are slightly jagged. I couldn't believe it, but then I looked at her eyes again. She was still beautiful. Her eyes are much younger than her face. I was just stunned. I couldn't stop staring at her. She turned around to get a donut off the wall, bending slightly. That booty though. No one knows the real me. I really want to confide in someone, but I'm afraid of rejection. Everyone thinks I'm decent when I'm not. All my friends know me for my inappropriate humor, extensive knowledge on obscure things, and carefree attitude towards life. I can listen all day to other people's problems and offer good advice. I can be your trustworthy and level-headed big sister. But I'm so terrible at speaking about what bothers me, what things from the past are still affecting me. When I try to mention it, I always backtrack and make a joke of it and make it no big deal. I'm keeping myself sane though through speaking to myself. It's losing its effectiveness, so that's why I'm here. I know other people are like this. The problem is, I'm not close to anyone who would accept me if they knew what I think like and what I've done, and still do. I'm a compulsive liar, and I had several identities over my whole life, and thankfully, I've never been found out. I really feel like I had no conscience as a kid. I made a fake account and trolled my friends publicly. One of my friends, who considered me to be her best friend, I bullied so hard through that account that she became depressed. I said some disgusting things, really unforgivable, but I will never come clean. Not until the hour of judgment. I know it was wrong, and I'm so close with her now. I'm just scared to be looked at like scum. I used to lie and lie about my life at school to my friends who didn't go to the same school. I know this is normal for a 14 to 16-year-old, but this is only the start of all my lies. I have lied about everything from small trivial matters, like what I ate that day, to having older brothers, to having depression, to my own mother having a serious illness, to being a whole different person. Not once did I ever feel bad about any of these, until a month ago when I deleted my alter ego accounts, and I've not touched them since. I have been comforting myself with more lies and validation for too long. I will never fully correct all those lies, but I'm going to come to terms with myself from now on, in the right and healthy way for sure. One of my friends recently lied about her date of birth and several other personal details for reasons unknown, and another friend and I were discussing it, questioning what the reason could be and how she could do such a thing. How can we ever trust her again? I had to sit there and berate that girl behind her back for stuff that I'd been doing my whole life. That made me kind of sick, and I hoped that no one could ever find out about me. When I was little, I used to steal money from my mum. I knew my brother stole a lot from my parents and siblings. I didn't think it was cool, but for a short period, I copied him and found that I enjoyed saving up money. I would just go into my mum's purse, and she always had an envelope full of cash. I'd take a 20 here and there. One day, I had accumulated almost a couple of $100, and I brought it to the grocery store with me, planning to buy something. I was with my mum, and I had all the money bundled in my pocket. I was super excited, but I also felt a little guilty. We passed by one of those Christmas donation collectors, and I took out a 20 and put it in. It made me feel pretty good, and as I walked back up to my mum, I felt even more guilt arise. I turned around and walked back to the bell ringer, and took the rest of the cash out of my pocket and threw it all in. That was the last time I ever stole, and I never told anyone about it. It's probably a good thing I donated it, because I'm certain she would have wondered how I ever got that much cash. Sadly, I'm sure my brother caught all the blame for the missing money. To this day, if anything goes missing, it's automatically assumed that he may have been having a rough time, even though I'm mostly certain he stopped stealing a long time ago. Half the time, the missing item is found shortly after too. I once hit a kid with a book, lied about it, and got away with it. This was sometime in middle school. I was sitting on the swing like I would usually do, when another kid walked up to me. He was a really mean kid, who made fun of everyone. He never bothered me until then. He started saying mean things, and I ended up losing my temper quicker than I thought I would. I actually didn't expect to lose my temper at all. I stood up and pulled the book back like you would a bat, and moved it forward full force. I was pretty weak back then and didn't expect to actually hurt him, but to just get him to leave me alone for a while. So when I let my arms fall to my sides, I was surprised with what I'd done, even though it wasn't much. He had a bruise on his face now, and he ran off towards the teacher without saying anything. I couldn't hear what was being said, but he kept pointing at me. She didn't see because she had her back turned to us and was lower down on the hill the playground was placed on. In the office, I was asked what happened. I lied and said I didn't do anything. I started crying. It wasn't fake though, it was real. I was scared of what would happen if I got caught. In the end, I was given no punishment, so I guess they believed my lies. The kid didn't come back to school for a week. I'm not sure why though. I regret doing what I did to this day. I wished I had dropped the book. I wish I didn't lose my temper so quickly. I stole from the church fundraiser twice and would have stolen more. When I was 12, our church had a fundraiser where we were tasked to sell chocolates, Reese's peanut butter cups to be exact. Me, a fat kid already, was handed a box of chocolates at a Friday night youth club and told to go sell them. I looked at them, looked at the box of chocolates, and looked back at them thinking, really? This seems like a bad idea. I set off with the intent to sell the chocolates. I really did. Instead, I got home and thought, I'll just eat one. Well, that escalated quickly. By mid-Saturday morning, I'm creating new Reese's peanut butter cup creations, freezing some, and even a bowl of peanut butter cup cereal. I cleaned out the whole fundraising box of 40 packs of chocolates by church on Sunday. I made up a story about getting jumped and the candy stolen from me on my way home. They gave me another box when I returned again with no money and no chocolates. I think they figured out my scam and stopped giving me candy. I stole from a guy and sold what I stole back to the same guy. When I was a kid, I used to steal small things like chocolate from the supermarket or a marker from school, just for fun, because according to me at the time, they were all wealthy people. I used to go to an internet cafe, where they had computers where you could play networked games on. In my country, they're called something like cyber coffee. So one day I went there, and while using the computer, they were in this private space you could have for full privacy. I opened the computer and took some memory from inside, which I later installed in my own computer. After some time, I changed my computer for a better one, so I sold the old parts individually, including the stolen RAM. The thing is that when I went to deliver the memory to the buyer, it happened that it was the same guy I stole it from, so he had no idea that he was buying his own memory back. For me at the time, it was just a funny story, but I've been regretting what I did every time I recall the moment. And now I don't know who this guy is, where I can find him, or anything so I can pay for what I did wrong. This is something I really don't feel proud of. I stole my barber's Playboys from his supply closet. When I was in high school, my mum would make my haircut appointments, and I would walk there after school. The barber shop was in suburban Philadelphia, in a small strip shopping center. It was an old school men's shop, 3 chairs with the regular barbers, and then a behind the curtain spot for the owner with the big shots. The best part, he kind of specialized in clients with toupees, so the curtain would get pulled closed and they would presumably remove their wigs. The Playboys were each in a plastic binding that blocked the cover girl but showed the Playboy title across the top. I would see men looking at them as they waited, but I would never be so bold myself. I once went to the bathroom right after I got there and found back issues in an open box in the hallway supply closet. The next haircut, I went straight to the bathroom and filled my backpack with 8 or 10 issues. This was maybe 1990. I do remember thinking throughout my haircut, since I took them before my cut that day and in subsequent haircuts, that it was just a matter of time before I got caught and forced to confess, which of course never happened. Here's a 40-year-long secret I've kept from my parents. I was around 8 years old, playing at a friend's house. My parents were friends with his parents, so I went there while my parents were out. So, said friend's dad was a cop, and he was working that day. We were shooting pellet guns at targets in his backyard. It was cold out, so he told me to reload his gun while he went in to get his gloves. When he came back, he pointed the rifle at my head, and he said freeze as he pulled the trigger. I woke up behind his shed, his tears splashing on my face, and the crunching noise his pocket knife made as he tried to dig the pellet out of my skull. He told me that if I told anyone what happened, his dad would throw me and my whole family in jail. 40 years later, my parents still believe I dropped my rifle and it went off, leaving the scar that's above my right eye to this day. They had to pay the ER bill too. I found my friend's stolen notebook and threw it in the trash. Back when I was 8 or 9 years old, the girl that sat next to me in school had this notebook that she was very proud of because the essays in it had been praised by all teachers, and in one particular essay, she had attached a family photo. One day, she started saying that she couldn't find the book anywhere. Everyone tried looking for it. We went through everyone's bags and still didn't find it. She seemed very upset and angry about whoever stole her notebook, and cursed at them a lot. A few days passed, and we noticed her looking suspiciously at other people's bags and books. About 3 or 4 days later, I went home and found the notebook in my bag. I don't know if it had been in there all the time. Maybe she put it in by mistake, as our desks were next to each other, but thought that that was unlikely because she had checked my bag too. I tried recalling if maybe I'd borrowed it, but didn't remember that happening either. Then I remembered that we had PE class that day, during which time our bags were left in the classroom, so maybe someone put it in then. The problem was that by this time, even our parents knew that someone stole her book, and everyone seemed rather angry about whoever stole it. I got scared, and thought that if I returned the book, everyone will accuse me of being a thief. I thought of just putting the book on her desk when no one was around. But what if someone saw me doing that? Then I won't even have a defense. In the end, after worrying about how to handle the situation, I couldn't see a way out and threw the book into a garbage truck that I passed on the street. No one knows. I know it could have been handled better, but this is a confession story, so there. I hit a kid with my knee during middle school, and I saw him again. I just want to get this off my chest for a little bit. Let's call this kid John. Okay, so as a kid, I had a small friend group. As I'm looking back at these memories, I can only remember them constantly belittling me and harassing me into doing things they like. And as a little terror myself, I would do the same things to them, because I thought it was normal. Now, when I was younger, I was the class clown, but I had a lot of uncontrollable anger issues, yelling, throwing chairs, and hurling insults at other kids. During that time, I was friends with these other kids, and we were at the library just doing dumb stuff, probably chilling, talking about girls or destroying a book. So John comes around to all of us, and he was kind of loud and annoying. We always had our little beef with each other though. I guess all that beef boiled up to the point where I would go, I want to hit him, and stuff like that. But right then in the library, all the kids in my friend group started calling my bluff and started chanting for me to hit him. John was just minding his own business, walking around getting a book for himself, and I say hi, grab him by the shoulders and hit him with my knee right in the gut. I was so wrong to do that, and I knew it was horrible, because John just collapsed on the floor and started coughing and crying, and we ran off. He screamed something at me, but I don't remember what it was. The other kids were dumbfounded and would say things like, "Didn't know you would do that," and blame me for what just happened. The thing is, the teachers never got involved. I never heard anything about this from them. At the end of the day, John's mother came up to my face and started chewing me out over it, and of course I was feeling remorseful, but at that moment, I was feeling attacked, so I just made jokes about it and walked away from her. The reason this is all coming down onto me is because I recently saw him at a supermarket, smiling, being happy, and his usual self, but just older. I just left immediately because I nearly started crying right then. I've changed, like a lot, and I just need to get this off my chest. So if John is out there listening to this, or your mother, I'm wishing you both the best, and I hope life is going great for you. I used to steal money from the school store when I was in middle school to afford food. I was very, very poor. Too poor to afford new clothes or for my mum to go a day without working. I wanted to be helpful and didn't want to be alone with my abusive stepfather, so I decided to help with my middle school student council. I was able to stay after school for a few extra hours, and it felt like what I did mattered, even if it didn't. I eventually started going to the school store, which had a line going from our doors all the way to the front doors over 50 feet every single day after school. We would serve 3 students at a time. Student council kids were responsible for taking the cash and putting it in the register, and then giving change and so forth. Sometimes I would pocket the bills and still give back the change. Sometimes I would give back the wrong change and pocket the leftover. Middle school students never knew the difference. Looking back at it, the teacher who was in charge of our student council knew. He always knew that it was me, and he never asked or got me into trouble. He knew how poor I was and how badly I needed food after school. He never said anything, but I still think about it often, even though I've become successful. I have never told a soul until now. So thank you, Mr. Griffin. I was able to afford to feed myself and my sisters for 2 years because of you. Mr. Griffin died my senior year of high school. As an update, I'm good, on my way to medical school, and I have a wife and cat waiting for me at home every evening. Neither me or my sister ever go hungry at night, and yeah, my mum is doing better too. I actually ended up doing tutoring at that school because of my experience. I hated middle school, but a lot of teachers there helped me stay on track and not think about my home life. As an adult, I went back and tutored youth similar to myself. No student had to pay, and even if you didn't need to do any homework or you didn't need help, I was still able to make it a place for students to go. I always brought food too, so kids could get a snack or even a meal if they requested it. It's helped make me feel better. I stole around $300 from my dad's debit card over the past 3 years. So I've been a gaming addict and in 2017 when my dad got a new debit card, I began to steal money from it to buy myself games on Steam, and bought a lot of game skins too. This happened over the past 3 years, and although I stopped doing it from this year, I still feel guilty about it sometimes. My dad did notice something wrong while updating his bank statements, but he isn't that educated or aware of the things that he should do when he saw money getting stolen from his account. I haven't brought this up with him ever, and it eats me up from inside. Since April, I've been teaching some students online and have been earning some modest money. What I've planned is, after I save up $300, I'll transfer it to my dad's account, but will transfer the money step by step so he doesn't feel anything suspicious. I don't think I'll be able to confess what I've done after almost a year. I used to fake my progress report grades, even though my grades were okay, kind of. Yeah, not a good look, more of a stupid look. My parents only accepted A's and B's. If not, my parents would have taken away my electronics, and we'd have had a strong sit-down conversation. No C's, which isn't a big problem, but I had sociology in 9th grade, and I would always fail the test, even though I did great on the quizzes, which would always leave my overall grade in like the lower 70s. The time came where they were wondering where my report cards were, so I'd go to the website, click inspect, and change the numbers on the page, then print it out. I did this 2 times in total, and they fell for it each time, and took me out for ice cream to congratulate me, because that's how you bribe kids, well, me. Anyway, I just want to say I feel sorry because they would be proud of me after, but although I got all my grades up in that class, I kind of wish I could have done that before lying about it. I insulted a girl I didn't know from anywhere and never apologized. So this happened about 11 years ago. I had just arrived at a bus stop where I would normally wait for the bus to take me to school. I immediately saw 2 guys and 2 girls. The 2 guys and one of the girls were my friends. As for the other girl, I didn't know her. I said hi to the 2 guys, and then somehow forgot to say it to my female friend. One of my guy friends said, "Aren't you going to say hi to her?" And I realized I forgot to greet my female friend. Fortunately, she was cool about it, and I made the joke, "I don't say hello to annoying girls." To which my guy friend replied, "You don't even know her." I was very confused. Of course I knew her, she was my friend. As for the other girl I didn't know, she looked hurt, but she didn't say anything. Only a few minutes later, when I was on the bus, I realized that he meant the other girl. So yeah, I insulted this random girl and didn't apologize. I don't think I ever talked to her, ever, in the following years, but there was always this awkward feeling whenever she was around. I don't know if she ever realized that I thought he was referring to my friend, but it looked like she didn't. It's been 11 years, and it still makes me cringe. I actually tried to reach out to her, but we have no friends in common whatsoever. Those friends I mentioned were not friends with her for very long. I ended up remembering her first name, and I searched all over Facebook, and even stalked people who I knew used to be friends with her, and nothing. Sadly, the only way for me to find her again is to run into her in real life. And there's no way to know for sure that she hasn't moved out of town. Random girl whose name I forgot, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call you annoying. I didn't know you. You're probably not annoying. And even if you are, I had no right to call you that, considering I didn't know you. I smashed my mum's car against a parked car and did a hit and run. Where I lived, you didn't need to learn to reverse or park a car to get your driver's license, so I was pretty bad at it. I was reversing out of a parking lot and accidentally hit the one other car that was parked there. It had a pretty big dent in the back bumper. My mum's car got a huge dent in the front. Kinda panicked, I decided to flee the scene. When I got home, I told my mum that I had parked the car at work, and when I came back, I found it like this. She really wasn't happy, but she knew it wasn't my fault, so she didn't get mad. I know I would have been in a lot of trouble if it was my fault, and would have never been allowed to borrow her car again. To this day, she believes I parked the car in a stupid way, and my family still jokes about it quite a lot. Every time I feel really guilty, but I know I won't tell her. Also, I hope the owner of that other car didn't mind the dent too much. I'm glad they never found out who hit their car though. I was scared for months that somehow there was a witness or a camera that caught me, but nope. I convinced my little sister to cut off her hair when she was 6. I was about 8 at the time. I'm also female. She was very gullible and would believe me no matter what. So I would convince her to do a bunch of random stuff I knew that she wasn't supposed to do, so that she would get into trouble. I was a crappy kid. This one time, I took the scissors and cut off the tiniest bit of the tip of my hair. I hid it under her pillow and told her to do the same. She had bangs at the time, so when I handed her the scissors, she grabbed her bangs and cut them clean off. Her hair was now sticking up straight on her head. I told her to hide her hair under her pillow so the parents wouldn't see it. My sister had no idea why Mum was laughing, so she started laughing too. Mum almost immediately found the hair under her pillow, and when Dad found out, he was not happy to say the least. I still feel awful about it, but my sister doesn't even remember the incident. So, I'm still the only one who knows, except for you, of course. My mother still makes fun of her. I used to make friends with kids just to get into their apartment, so I could steal their Legos and then never speak to them again. Okay, so basically, for context, this takes place around 2014-ish, and I was 10, and my parents just broke up a few months ago. Not divorced, they were never married. So my dad wasn't around at this time, and my mum was usually at her new boyfriend's house, so I was pretty uncontrolled and unattended to as a kid, and I regret a lot of what I've done in those apartments. We were pretty poor, so I couldn't really afford a lot of toys or Legos at the time. The only main thing I had was an original Xbox, but the disc tray became stuck, so I could only play Fable. So most of the time, I would just be outside with my main friend, Efron. And Efron's situation was sort of similar to mine, except his mum's boyfriend bought him a lot of cool stuff. So at this point, I start to realize that a lot of kids here have it really good with the possessions they own, and I wanted some of that. So I made a plan to knock on this kid's door, ask if I could play outside, get to know him, and then go and steal Legos, and then disconnect. I knock on the door, and this kid answers holding an Xbox One controller in his hand. First time I've seen one in person. And he lets me in because he didn't want to go outside. And goddamn, this dude's house was like a utopia. His mum was there, and he had an Xbox, and he had hella Capri Suns. So here's the strat. We're playing GTA and taking turns every time we die and whatnot. So when I died on purpose, it would be his turn. I would say I need to go to the bathroom, and instead, I found his room, stole a ton of Lego Halo dudes, ran to the bathroom before his mum noticed what I was doing, and flushed the toilet. Now, I did the same thing with almost every kid in this apartment complex, with varied strategies, except Efron, who I convinced to join me in it. One kid there was definitely not neurotypical, which I felt bad for, because it didn't look like he had many friends, which is the one I regret most of all. It got so bad, I started asking my mum for cargo pants with extra pocket space. I looked weird in Arizona in the middle of July, wearing a 4-pocket hoodie and cargo pants, but it worked, until eventually, somehow, the original kid that was pampered as hell somehow finds out what I did like 4 months ago, even though I never double hit his house, and he also never caught me the first time, so I think his mum saw me, I don't know. Anyway, he sets up this big ass fight, and I knew he didn't know how to fight, because he probably never had to in his life, to be honest. And almost every kid in the complex was attending, and some were favoring me because I hung out with them one time, even though I stole their Legos, but they didn't know that. So, me being not so strong myself, I just went to the local vending machine. I got a yellow Gatorade, poured it into an empty bottle of water with a hole on the top. So I show up with this bottle, claiming it's my pee, and didn't even punch him. I just hosed him down at the yellow Gatorade, saying it was my pee, and he threw up everywhere. So yeah, kids, it's not cool to manipulate 10-year-olds and steal, because it makes you live with a lot of regret. I was mean to one of the only people that was nice to me in high school. We were in German class together, and she sat near me. I swear she always had a smile on her face. I remember her being a very bubbly person. She didn't have any reason to be friendly to me. She just was. Flash forward a couple of years later. I couldn't conceive that a person could be that nice. I thought it had to be a cruel joke on her part. So I, in response, said crappy things to her. Still, she seemed to have responded to those crappy things with kindness in return. A couple of months ago, it came to me out of the blue that she actually was a genuinely nice person, and I had bashed her because of this. I still feel like a lowlife because of it. I don't think I did much, but I hope I didn't make it harder for her to be a nice, warm, open person. So, I'm sorry, Leah. I'm going to try and make it up to you in the near future. Only time will reveal the outcome of that, a fact that isn't emotionally easy for me right now. I lied to get out of a school project and ended up stuck in therapy for a year. When I was a senior in high school, in the beginning of the school year, we had to do a project where we had to do a presentation and show how to do something step by step. I picked making chocolate chip cookies, so when I was going to present, I had to show a step by step on how to make them, so I had to bring milk, eggs, bowls, etc. We had 3 weeks to plan for the project, but it was the day, and I had to present, and I didn't prepare or bring anything. So, as soon as I got to school, I went into my English class and told my teacher I didn't have anything because my mum and dad got into a fight 2 nights before, and my dad kicked us out, and we've been living in a hotel. She said it's okay and that she would give me credit for my written part. The next week when I was in 3rd period, I get called into the office. The school therapist was there and told me she wanted to talk to me. She asked me if everything was okay at home, and I didn't want to have to do my project and get caught lying, so I kept with the story that my dad kicked us out. I started crying, and the therapist told me that she would like to see me once a week, so I went for my whole senior year once a week to therapy to avoid doing one project. I vandalized the school bathrooms and didn't get caught. When I was like 8 or 9, me and 2 friends flooded the school toilets at elementary school by stuffing things down there, left the taps on, trashed the place, etc. It was honestly really fun, and I got a thrill out of doing it. The next day, the teachers make the entire school go to an assembly where they say something like, "We found the school bathrooms vandalized, and if you own up now, you'll just get a week suspension. But if we find out it's you later on, you'll be expelled and probably arrested." Obviously, none of us said anything. I was scared for like a week, because I thought they would find out, but they never did. Me and my friends broke into a house when we were 13 years old. So me and my 2 friends were just having a walk during a warm summer night when we came across a house which was put up for sale, and there were no tenants at the time. I live in this community, so I knew there was no one living in that house. I was like, let's see what's inside from outside peeking through the window. Of course my friends agreed. We're looking through the window and there's no curtains. I tried to slide the window open just to see if it would open. Sure enough, it did, and we decided to sneak inside. The house was empty, without any furniture, but there were many boxes laying around with things inside. We opened every single one and looked if there was anything valuable. There were tiles laying around stacked against the wall, and I suddenly gently touched one of the tiles, and one by one, they fell on the ground, breaking at least a dozen. We froze to death, waiting for someone to catch us. It was the scariest moment we had experienced, because there were cameras installed in the community, and one guard protecting it. We then proceeded to escape. This has been our secret all this time without anyone knowing, until now. When I was a teenager, I made my parents think that I was possessed by a spirit. This was in the late 90s. My first girlfriend's parents didn't want her to have a relationship, and instead to concentrate on school. My parents were cool with relationships. Because of that, we'd have to sneak around her parents, going to the cinema, meeting at mutual friends' places, and we started talking on the landline phone at 12 AM to maybe 4 AM, while everyone was asleep. We'd talk during the day, but parents limited us to 10 minutes and would literally come to tell us to get off the phone. Also, it must be mentioned that phone calls back then were pretty expensive, but there was a plan where you'd pay for a high monthly rate, where you'd pay for calls for the first 30 minutes, and then free for the duration of the call. We thought we were smart. We'd lower the ringer to silent. It was like a rotary phone, but the newer push-button version. And at exactly 12 AM, she would call, and I would keep my finger pressed on the part that the receiver sat on. I'd keep lifting my finger, and if I heard the dial tone, I'd just keep doing it until I didn't, which meant she was on the line. Sometimes she'd call at exactly 12 or 12:30, and I'd be there just pressing the button and waiting. One night, around 2:30 AM, I'm sitting in the room, lights off, and the convo is going, well, let's say it's got heated. About 10 minutes into it, I hear the door open and close, and I freak out. Not wanting to get caught with my pants around my ankles, I quickly lower myself to the ground and crawl to the side of the chair, which is next to the wall. Now, we've been doing the late night thing for a while, and no one ever woke up, but we always discussed what we'd do if we heard anyone wake up. We'd place the receiver at a slight angle so calls don't hang up, so it wouldn't charge more money for a new call, and wait until the coast was clear to continue. Anyway, I'm crouched on the side of the wall, trying to pull my pants up and simultaneously trying to put the receiver properly so it wouldn't hang up, and I hear my family talking. I'm dying inside, and all of a sudden, just as I manage to get myself straight, my mum and dad and 2 siblings, apparently they went into my siblings' room looking for me and woke everyone up, come into the room, and my mum says my name curiously. I don't answer, thinking I'm caught out, and keep looking down, hoping the floor would swallow me up. My mum comes and lifts me up to standing position, and I'm hoping I'm not showing, and she asks me if I'm okay. I still don't answer. She looks at my dad and says, "I think he's possessed." She was very religious and believed in all those things. Now I see the light. I just stare at them blankly, and they continue talking about me being possessed as if I'm not there. Meanwhile, my girlfriend is still on the phone and freaking out. Anyway, they walk me to my room, and my mum starts praying over me for what seems like forever. Finally, I pretend to go to sleep, and they all leave. I sneak out to the phone again, and my girlfriend is still on there waiting. I hurriedly tell her that I'll talk to her tomorrow and run back to my room. She laughed so hard the next day when we spoke, because she was amazed at how it worked out and I didn't get caught. Sadly, both my parents passed away, and I never got to tell them the truth about that night. I think they'd laugh too.